Age ago, in a bright and verdant land, there dwelled a beautiful maiden, hair of chestnut, eyes of deep emerald green, skin as smooth as polished ivory. Her very presence made the air stand still and notice. When she walked the fields of wildflowers in the afternoon, it seemed the sun shone just for her, as if it were enwrapped and could not glance away. And in the same land there rode a knight, tall of stature, hair like a lion's mane, eyes of piercing winter blue, a face tanned from distant campaigns. When he rode into battle, his steed tore the ground, and his sword and armor glinted in the sun's rays. Enemies would scatter without a fight, and allies would cheer and sing of his fierceness. None were his equal. It was on an early summer's day the maiden and knight first met. She was picking wildflowers in her favorite meadow, and he was resting his horse by a stream. Their gazes met over the field. She was caught by his commanding features, and he by her almost ethereal beauty. When they drew close and took each other by the hand, they felt at once they were meant to be together. Love claimed them that day. After a short while, they were wed in a gala ceremony. It was a joyous celebration as ever been seen in the land. The knight then had a castle built by the meadow where they met, so his wife could always be near her wildflowers. On sunlit afternoons, they could be seen walking through the fields or resting by the stream, content in this world that was theirs. Now, many years later, a shadow fell over the land. A malevolent presence swooped from the sky and took what it wanted, leaving ruin in its wake. News of its approach reached the knight and his wife, and they prepared themselves. He donned his armor and took up his sword. She prepped the castle as best she could to hold back whatever was coming. At first light, they saw a dark shape flying out of the east. As it neared, its terrible contours became clear. It was a dragon, as large as 10 war horses, its wings and hide a dark ashen gray. With its back to the sun, they could see its sickly green eyes glowing with hate. Landing in the meadow outside the castle gate, it trained its gaze at them and roared out,
"You within! I know of your happiness, and I will take it. Open the gate! Open it, and maybe I'll be merciful and only devour one of you."
The gate flew open, and the knight charged at the dragon. The dragon thought he had an easy meal, but the knight proved a formidable opponent. Shield deflected wing, sword parried claw. By feints and dodges, he used the beast's size and speed against it. Soon he was covered in many wounds. As a last resort, the dragon used his fiery breath, but only grazed the knight, his shield saving him from being incinerated. The knight fell, alive but badly burned. The dragon smiled wickedly and went in to deliver a fatal bite. Before he could, an arrow plunged into his side. The lady armed with the knight's longbow had shot from the castle's high window. Seeing the dragon distracted, the knight slashed once more at the beast's face, cutting it deeply. The dragon screeched in pain and retreated, knowing one more strike would kill it. With a venomous hiss, it took to the air, flying as best as its torn wings could carry it. As it flew away, it hurled its final threat at the pair.
"I will return, and I will see your happiness destroyed."
The lady ran out to the scorched meadows where her husband lay. Taking him gently, she began to apply salves and ointments to his burns, binding his wounds with strips of cloth. He smiled at her, even though he was in pain.
"I'm sorry about the flowers, dear. The fight seems to have spoiled them."
She smiled back through her tears.
"They'll grow back, my love. It's you who needs tending now. I can't replace you."
They held each other for a long time, then quietly walked back to the castle. In time, the meadow bloomed again. The night was healed and the dragon forgotten. A few years later, during a violent thunderstorm, a stranger came to the castle door. The wind and rain lashed the hooded figure, who pounded on the frame and pleaded for shelter. The knight and his wife saw him through the high window and ran to let him in. They opened the door, and in stepped a ragged man, tired and hungry, and carrying a bundle. After setting him by the fireplace and giving him something to eat, they asked what he was doing out on such a night.
"I was heading towards the nearby village to see if I could exchange my talents for money or food. You see, I'm a painter of pictures."
He then showed them the bundle he was carrying, and it contained various brushes and jars of paint.
But I see our mantelpiece is bare. Maybe a fine portrait of you, kind sir, and you, dear lady, would be my way of showing gratitude for your hospitality.
They thought it a wonderful idea, and supplying him with a length of canvas, he began to paint. The knight and lady posed for him in their finest attire, lit by the sunlight coming through the thunderclouds and into the window. He worked quickly, but with the grace of a master artist. When afternoon came, he stepped back from his work and declared,
"It is done."
The knight and the lady came forward to look and were stunned. Though the man only worked on it for a few hours, he produced a masterpiece. The detail was exquisite, and their painted likeness was as if they were looking into a mirror. They almost seemed to breathe. As they stared in amazement, the man spoke.
"I see you are impressed, sir and madame. I thank you. My talent has won me much admiration, but I am at heart a humble man. In fact, I don't even sign my own work.
He then presented a thin brush to them.
Instead, I ask the painting subjects to please sign their own names."
They agreed to his unusual request and painted their own names underneath their corresponding portraits. Then the man, with equal speed and artistry, framed and mounted the painting over the fireplace mantel. It looked grand, and before he left, they thanked him, gave him some money and food, and wished him farewell. After the man left, they returned to the mantel to admire the painting again. But when they viewed it, something was terribly wrong. The knight saw his wife as beautiful as ever, but beside her stood a decrepit old man. He was stooped with age, wrinkled and scarred from a lifetime of battles. Likewise, when the lady looked at the painting, she saw her husband, tall and handsome, but she was a frail and sickly old woman. Her hair was gray and thinning, and her youth was long gone. It was then they heard an evil laughter coming from outside. Peering from the high window, they saw the man standing in the meadow. He was smiling with a grin that displayed horrid fangs, and his eyes glowed a sickly green.
It's the dragon!
They then knew why the painting had changed. The dragon had transformed himself into a human and tricked them into letting him into their home. He enchanted the painting with a curse, and by signing their own names to it, bonded them to its power. By this curse, he sought to drive them apart, too appalled to look at themselves, feeling unworthy of the other.
I said I would take your happiness. Now weep forever in despair. You will never love each other again.
The dragon, now growing to his full height, stretching his huge wings, it launched itself into the sky. As it flew away into the oncoming night, its mocking laughter echoed in their ears. Terrified to look at it and fearing destroying it would curse them further, the knight and the lady took the painting to the upper floor. There, they covered it with an old curtain and locked it in a spare room, hoping to never see it again. Afterwards, they went off to bed, tired and saddened. The lady cried herself to sleep, while the knight lay thinking what the future would bring. The first rays of dawn shone in their room, and the wife awoke. She was alone in the bed, and saw her knight standing by the window. She walked over to him, and they looked at each other in the growing light. Both were still thinking of the dragon's cursed painting, hidden away, but still casting its spell on them. As the room grew brighter, they began to notice something they hadn't before. The knight's hair was beginning to gray, his skin to sag, and his blue eyes were not as piercing as they once were. Likewise, the lady's fair skin was not as smooth, and her green eyes were showing wrinkles around the corners. The years had started to age them, to begin the work of turning them into the images they saw in the painting. Yet, somehow, it didn't matter.
Every scar on my body I received protecting you, my dearest, and I would happily suffer even more, at least one hair on your head be out of place.
And every line on my face is because I worried and cared for you, love. When you were hurt in battle, I stayed by your sickbed and nursed you through your pain.
The knight touched her face.
I'll always love you. To me, you'll always be the maiden I met in the meadow.
You'll always be my brave warrior. No curse will undo us.
They embraced and kissed. Suddenly, from up in the room where they hid the painting, there was a loud crash. They rushed upstairs and unlocked the door. Inside, they saw the painting lying on the floor. Removing the curtain, they saw the canvas was now blank, the paint having flaked off and been blown away by a breeze from the window. Outside, a screech of pure anguish tore through the morning air. Looking out the window, they saw the dragon flying away in defeat.
We've beaten it! The curse lifted!
But it is still out there. How do we know he won't come back?
It might, but it will never be able to hold the same power over us again. Because now we know how to defeat it. As long as we love each other, no matter what life brings, we'll be victorious.
The ladies smiled and they embraced again. For the rest of their lives, the knight and the lady were happy and met any challenge, no matter how terrible, together. On sunlit afternoons, they could be seen walking through the fields or resting by the stream, content in this world that was theirs.